Have you ever stopped to think about why some people seem to carry an invisible weight while others float through life without major scars? The uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say is this: pain transforms, and when it passes through your soul like fire, you are never the same again. Carl Jung, the psychologist who revolutionized our understanding of the human psyche, made a disturbing discovery. When pain is not understood or processed, it doesn't disappear. It transforms into behavior, into patterns, into ways of existing that completely shape who you are. There are 13 specific characteristics that reveal a soul that has already been transformed by pain. And if you recognize at least some of them in yourself, it means something profound. You are not just someone who has suffered, you are someone who has been forged in fire and emerged different on the other side. These marks are not weaknesses. They are invisible scars from battles you fought alone, and each one tells a story of survival that few can understand. Throughout this video, we'll explore each of these characteristics with the depth they deserve, and maybe, just maybe, you'll finally understand why you are the way you are. Get ready, because what you're about to discover may completely change how you see yourself. And if you're ready for this journey of profound self-discovery, keep watching, because the first mark is something you probably carry without even realizing it. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. And if you're subscribed to the channel, we have a bonus in the first pinned comment. There's something curious about pain that most people don't realize. It rarely screams. In fact, the deepest pain is often silent, almost imperceptible to the outside observer. While everyone expects to see tears or hear lamentations, true pain hides behind automatic smiles. Short answers like, "I'm fine," and a routine that continues as if nothing is happening. It's as if the wounded soul learns to operate on autopilot, maintaining appearances while inside something essential is cracked. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist who dedicated his life to exploring the mysteries of the human psyche, understood this better than anyone. He realized that when a person cannot process their pain, when there is no safe space to cry or scream, that pain needs to find another outlet, and it does. It transforms into patterns of behavior, into automatic reactions, into ways of existing that seem strange to those who don't know the story behind them. A person can become excessively controlling, or perhaps desperately independent, or even obsessively worried about others, all without even realizing that they are simply trying to protect an old wound that never properly healed. What Jung discovered in his research on the unconscious is that our psyche functions as an intelligent survival system. When something hurts too much to be consciously felt, the ego creates defense mechanisms, constructing what Jung called the persona, a social mask that allows us to continue functioning in the world. But these masks come at a cost. They distance us from who we truly are, creating a distance between our essence and our presentation. Imagine a child who grew up in a home where expressing emotions was seen as weakness. This child doesn't simply overcome this experience as they grow up. No, they develop an invisible armor, a way of being that says, "I don't need anyone," even when their heart is begging for connection. Or think of that adult who avoids conflict at all costs, who apologizes for everything, who shrinks so as not to take up too much space. It's not a coincidence. It's not a natural personality. It's an invisible scar, a mark left by moments when expressing needs brought rejection or punishment. Deep spirituality is born precisely from this awareness, realizing that much of what we do today is not a free choice, but a conditioned response to old pains. And this is the first step towards true transformation. What's fascinating is that these invisible scars completely shape how a person exists in the world. They determine who they allow into their life, how they react to love, how they deal with conflict, even how they experience pleasure or joy. It's as if the original pain created a filter through which every experience passes. A person who was abandoned in childhood may become hypervigilant in relationships, interpreting any small distancing as a sign of imminent rejection. Someone who grew up having to be strong for everyone may develop an inability to relax, to trust, to simply be cared for. These patterns are not character flaws. They are not personal weaknesses. They are creative and desperate attempts by the psyche to never again feel that original pain. The problem is that in trying to avoid pain, we end up creating a different kind of prison. We live limited, always on alert, always defensive, always ready for the worst. Jung teaches us that the path of individuation, which is the process of truly becoming who you are, requires looking at these wounds. It requires recognizing the patterns, understanding where they came from, and then consciously choosing who you want to be, instead of just reacting to what was done to you. And it is precisely here that those specific characteristics begin to appear, those marks that reveal a soul that has already passed through the fire of transformation. Hyper-independence is one of the most sophisticated armors that pain can build. At first glance, it seems admirable. A person who solves everything alone, who doesn't depend on anyone, who carries the world on their shoulders without complaining. Society even celebrates this, calling it maturity, strength, autonomy. But those who look with the eyes of true understanding perceive something different. They perceive the fear pulsing behind this extreme self-sufficiency. Because true independence is healthy, it's natural. It's the ability to walk on one's own 2 feet when necessary. Hyper-independence, however, is something else entirely. It's the inability to ask for help, even when one is dying of internal exhaustion. It's that feeling that if you depend on someone, you will be disappointed, abandoned, or worse. You will discover that you are not worthy of care. Carl Jung would say that this person is operating from unconscious fear, not conscious strength. The ego has created a fortress so high that not even love can scale its walls. And deep down, way down deep, this person knows they're exhausted from carrying everything alone. But the idea of letting their guard down seems more terrifying than continuing to bleed in silence. This armor of extreme self-sufficiency usually arises at specific moments in life. Perhaps it was that child who asked for help and heard, "Figure it out yourself." Or that teenager who trusted someone and was betrayed precisely at their most vulnerable moment. It may have been the person who, when crying, was called weak or dramatic. What happens is simple and devastating at the same time. The psyche learns that vulnerability brings pain, so it builds a system where vulnerability no longer exists. The person begins to believe that they need to be an island, complete in themselves, without bridges to anywhere. And this works for a while. They become efficient, solve problems, achieve goals, but the price is high. Relationships become superficial because true intimacy requires reciprocity, requires allowing the other person to also care, also contribute, also be needed. Whoever never needs anyone also never connects deeply with anyone. It's like living inside a transparent dome. You see people, they see you, but there's an invisible barrier that prevents real touch. Authentic spirituality teaches us that we are relational beings by nature. that we grow in interdependence, not in isolated independence. The most painful thing is that the hyper-independent person usually carries a secret shame for having needs. They look at themselves and think, why can't I do everything alone? Why do I sometimes feel the need to be taken care of? And then they punish themselves for these naturally human desires. Jung explored these aspects deeply through the concept of archetypes. Hyper-independence is often linked to the archetype of the wounded warrior, the one who has learned that the battle never ends and that lowering one's guard means death. But there is another archetype waiting to be integrated, that of the hero who learns that true courage lies in allowing oneself to be vulnerable, in recognizing that needing others is not weakness, but wisdom. Imagine a person who begins to practice small acts of vulnerability, asking a friend for help with a move, admitting to someone that they are having a difficult day, accepting a hug when the impulse is to say, "I'm fine." Each of these gestures is a revolutionary act of healing. It is the rigid persona beginning to soften, allowing the true essence to emerge. And it is precisely this rigidity that finds its complementary opposite in another striking characteristic, that capacity to feel too intensely what others feel. Excessive empathy is like having skin too thin for the world. It's feeling everything, capturing every emotion in the environment, absorbing the sadness of others as if it were your own, carrying the emotional weight of everyone around you without even realizing you're doing it. For those who have never experienced it, it may seem like a beautiful, almost magical gift. But for those who live with it, it's exhausting. It's entering a room and immediately feeling that something is wrong, even if everyone is smiling. It's talking to someone and capturing not only the words, but all the unspoken pain that pulsates behind them. Carl Jung spoke about how our psyche is constantly in dialogue with the collective unconscious, how porous we are to each other in ways we barely understand. And for some people, this porosity is extreme. They not only understand the suffering of others, they feel it viscerally, as if it were their own. The problem is that this heightened capacity rarely arises from a place of balance. Most of the time, it stemmed from the need for survival, from a child who needed to read the emotions of the adults around them, to anticipate emotional dangers, to know when to hide, when to act small, when to try to fix someone's mood to stay safe. This ability to anticipate emotional dangers transforms into a permanently tuned antenna. The person grows up constantly scanning the environment, reading micro-expressions, picking up subtle changes in tone of voice, noticing when someone is lying about being okay. It seems useful, and sometimes it is, but the cost is brutal. Because while they are completely attuned to the emotions of others, they forget their own. They lose touch with what they feel, with what they need, with what they want. Deep spirituality reminds us that before caring for the world, we need to have firm roots in ourselves. But those who have developed excessive empathy as a defense mechanism operate in reverse. They take care of everyone so they don't have to look inward, so they don't have to feel their own pain. It's easier to solve other people's problems than to face their own. It's less frightening to delve into someone else's sadness than into their own. And so they become that friend who is always available, that person everyone seeks out when they need comfort, but whom no one really knows, because they never talk about themselves, never ask for help, never reveal their own wounds. The most dangerous aspect is that this excessive empathy can become a sophisticated mechanism for escaping one's own pain. Jung teaches us about shadow work, which is precisely about looking at what we avoid in ourselves. And for many empathetic people, their own vulnerability lies in the shadow. They project onto others what they cannot recognize in themselves, the need for care, fragility, the right to be weak sometimes. So they dedicate their lives to caring, welcoming, saving, while inside they are emptying themselves. It's like trying to fill other people's cups while your own is cracked and leaking. Think of that person who spends hours listening to everyone's problems, who cancels their own plans to be available, who feels guilty when setting boundaries. They are not just being kind, they are running away. They are using the pain of others as anesthesia for their own. Healing begins when they learn to direct some of that empathy towards themselves, when they realize that they also deserve the care they so generously offer to others. When they begin to say, "I can't right now," without guilt, when you allow your own emotions to take over. And it is precisely this difficulty with boundaries that leads us to another profound mark, the paralyzing fear of true relationships. The fear of true relationships is one of the most painful paradoxes of a wounded soul. A person desires deep connection, yearns for intimacy, dreams of someone who sees them completely, but the moment that begins to happen, something inside panics. It's as if there's an internal alarm that goes off whenever someone gets too close, whenever vulnerability becomes real, whenever the risk of being hurt again appears on the horizon. Carl Jung would say that we are facing a conflict between the conscious desire to love and the unconscious fear of being abandoned. And fear always screams louder, always wins the battle, because it carries the memory of an old pain that the mind swore never to repeat. So the person sabotages themselves without realizing it. They find someone wonderful and start looking for flaws. They feel love arriving and invent reasons to distance themselves. They are being treated with affection, and yet they distrust, question, test, push to see if the person will leave, because deep down they are already expecting disappointment. It's exhausting to live like this, always with one foot in and the other out, always ready to run, always convinced that it's better to leave before being abandoned than to risk staying and suffering again. This difficulty with emotional intimacy isn't fussiness or a lack of interest in relationships. It's a real wound that throbs every time someone tries to get close. Imagine a child who completely trusted someone and was abandoned, betrayed, or neglected. That child didn't disappear just because their body grew. They remain inside, guarding the memory of the pain. And every time the adult tries to open up to someone, it's that inner child who takes control, screaming, "No! Remember what happened last time?" And then the reactions begin, which seem exaggerated to outsiders. A delay becomes proof of disinterest. An unanswered message becomes confirmation of abandonment. A subtle change in behavior becomes evidence of betrayal. The person with this mark isn't being dramatic. They are genuinely terrified. Their nervous system has learned that intimacy precedes pain, so it activates all the protective mechanisms even before something bad happens. Jealousy arises not because they don't trust their partner, but because they don't trust that someone can truly choose to stay. The sudden withdrawals aren't manipulation, they're pure panic. Spirituality teaches us that healing these wounds requires recognizing that the present is not the past, that the person in front of you is not the one who hurt you years ago. What makes it all the more complicated is that often the person doesn't even realize they're sabotaging themselves. They genuinely believe the problem lies with others, that they're just unlucky in relationships, that people always disappoint them. But Jung invites us to look deeper, to investigate the archetypes at play. Perhaps it's the archetype of the orphan, the one who carries the certainty of always being abandoned, or the archetype of the martyr, who believes that to love means to suffer. These unconscious patterns govern choices, dictate reactions, and create self-fulfilling prophecies. The person who fears abandonment behaves in ways that push people away, and then says, "See, I knew you'd leave." But there is a way out, and it begins with awareness. It begins when the person perceives the pattern, when they recognize they are reacting to the past, not the present, when they learn to say, "I'm afraid," instead of creating arguments. When you seek therapy, when you do shadow work, when you allow someone you trust to help you see your blind spots, Small steps like writing in a journal about emotional triggers, or pausing before reacting impulsively, or asking yourself, is this fear about now or about the past? Are profound acts of healing. And while this internal battle is happening, outwardly, the person often projects a completely different image. The persona of strength is perhaps the most convincing mask that exists. It's that flawless image a person projects to the world. Someone who has everything under control, who never falters, who solves other people's problems while seemingly having none themselves. Everyone knows someone like that. That person who is always well, always available, always strong, and everyone believes in this image because it has been perfectly constructed over the years. But what no one sees is the private crumbling. The crying in the bathroom with the tap running to muffle the sound, the sleepless nights with a soaked pillow, the exhaustion that needs to be hidden behind yet another smile, another automatic response of, "I'm great." Carl Jung dedicated his life to studying exactly this. The difference between who we are to the world and who we really are when no one is watching. He called this social mask the persona and explained that it is necessary to a certain extent. We need some level of social adaptation to function in the world. The problem arises when the persona becomes so rigid, so perfect, so convincing that even the person themselves forgets who is behind it. Then the mask ceases to be a tool and becomes a prison. The cruelest part is that this persona of strength feeds on silence. The more the person maintains the facade, the harder it becomes to ask for help, because now there's a reputation to uphold, an image to preserve. People around them already see them as that unshakable rock, and they feel that disappointing that expectation would be a failure. So they continue. They remain strong during the day, solving everything, being everyone's pillar. And they crumble alone at night, where no one can see, where no one can judge. It's like living two parallel lives, the public one where everything is perfect, and the private one where everything is falling apart. This pattern usually stems from experiences where showing weakness had consequences. Perhaps it was a family where crying was a sign of weakness, or an environment where vulnerability was punished with rejection or ridicule. The child learned that to be loved, to be accepted, they needed to be strong. And so they built a fortress so well constructed that even they themselves can no longer find the exit. Deep spirituality invites us to question, strong for whom? Strong for what? Wouldn't true strength be having the courage to be vulnerable? The cycle perpetuates itself because, paradoxically, the more a person maintains this image of strength, the less help people offer. No one asks how they are because everyone assumes they are fine. No one offers support because they seem not to need it. And so they remain trapped in an invisible solitude, surrounded by people but profoundly alone because no one truly knows them. Jung teaches us that the path to individuation requires integrating the shadow. And for those who carry this persona of strength, the shadow is precisely fragility, exhaustion, the need to be cared for. The healing work involves beginning to show small cracks in the facade. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be something as simple as answering, "Actually, I'm not feeling very well today," when someone asks, or accepting help when offered, instead of automatically saying, "No need, I can handle it." Or sharing a difficulty with a trusted friend, even if the impulse is to keep everything to oneself. Each of these small acts is revolutionary because it breaks the pattern, because it allows the real person to begin to appear behind the mask. And perhaps, just perhaps, they will discover that people won't leave when they see their humanity, that she can be loved without needing to be perfect. But while this persona is active, other physical signs of pain also begin to manifest in unexpected ways. Sensory sensitivity is one of the most misunderstood manifestations of emotional trauma. We're not talking about a simple preference or whim, but a real physical response to stimuli that go unnoticed by other people. Loud noises become unbearable, almost painful. Loud music in a restaurant is not just annoying, it's physically and emotionally exhausting. Bright lights irritate the eyes and mind, making the person feel an urgent need to find softer, darker, gentler environments. Crowded places are not just uncomfortable, they are truly exhausting, as if each person present were an extra weight on the shoulders. Carl Jung, in his studies on the psyche, observed how the body and mind are deeply intertwined, how our emotional experience manifests physically in ways that the science of the time was barely beginning to understand. What happens is that the nervous system of someone who has experienced deep pain, especially in childhood, remains permanently in a state of maximum alert. It's as if the body never left survival mode, even when the danger has passed years ago. Every external stimulus is processed as a potential threat, and the organism reacts with an intensity disproportionate to what is actually happening. This state of constant hypervigilance has deep roots in the ancient need to anticipate dangers. Imagine a child who grew up in an unpredictable environment where a sudden sound could mean a violent argument, where changes in the environment signaled that something bad was about to happen. That child developed a super-sensitive radar, an ability to detect subtle changes before they became real threats. And this radar doesn't switch off when the person grows up. It continues to operate in the background, analyzing every sound, every light, every movement around. The problem is that this consumes a brutal amount of energy. It's like having a computer running 1,000 programs simultaneously instead of focusing on just one. The person arrives home after a normal day and feels completely drained, not because they exerted themselves physically, but because their nervous system spent energy monitoring every detail of the environment. Spirituality teaches us that our body carries memories that the conscious mind has already forgotten, and these sensory sensitivities are exactly that. The body remembering having been in danger, even when the mind says that everything is fine now. Awareness of this sensitivity is the first step to dealing with it more compassionately. Many people spend years thinking they are fussy, difficult, or overreacting because they don't understand that this is a real neurological response, not a choice. Jung invites us to honor all parts of ourselves, including this sensory vulnerability that seems inconvenient in a noisy and fast-paced world. And there are practical ways to work with it. Techniques such as regulating the nervous system through conscious breathing can help tremendously. Practicing a few minutes of deep breathing in the morning or before entering stimulating environments prepares the body not to react so intensely. Creating safe environments at home is also fundamental. Investing in soft lighting, having a quiet space to retreat to, using noise-canceling headphones when necessary. It's not fussiness, it's intelligent self-care. Reading books like The Body Keeps the Marks by Bessel van der Kolk can bring deep understanding of how trauma lives in the body. And recognizing that this sensitivity is not a weakness, but a consequence of having survived something difficult, can transform shame into self-compassion. But this need to control the external environment often expands into other areas of life in very specific ways. The obsessive need for control disguises itself as organization, responsibility, and efficiency. The person plans every detail of everything, makes lists upon lists, anticipates scenarios, and prepares plans B, C, and D for any possible situation. From the outside, they seem like someone very well organized, perhaps even admirable in their ability to foresee and plan. But inside, it's different. Inside, there's a visceral fear of the unpredictable, an anxiety that triggers whenever something deviates from the planned script. Because this need for control doesn't stem from a desire for power, as many think. It stems from the dread of being caught off guard again. Carl Jung explored deeply how our ego tries to create order in a world that is fundamentally chaotic and unpredictable. And for some people, especially those who have experienced situations where the unpredictable brought pain, control becomes the only way to feel any security. It's as if the mind makes a silent agreement. If I control everything, if I plan every possibility, I will never be caught off guard again. I will never suffer in that way again. But this agreement comes at a very high price. The impossibility of relaxing, of trusting, of simply letting life happen. This attempt to control everything extends to all areas of life. At work, a person needs to know exactly what will happen, has extreme difficulty with changes in plans or unpredictable bosses. In relationships, they may try to control schedules, routines, even the emotional reactions of other people. On trips, every minute is planned. Every contingency has been anticipated, and any deviation from the itinerary causes disproportionate stress. Delegating becomes almost impossible because nobody will do it the right way, which actually means nobody will do it exactly the way I need to feel safe. And here lies the tragedy. The more a person tries to control, the less control they actually have, because life is, by nature, uncontrollable. Things happen, people change, plans fall apart, and each time this happens, it's as if the original wound is being poked again, confirming the fear that the world is dangerous and unpredictable. True spirituality invites us to do the opposite, to learn to dance with uncertainty, to trust the flow of life, to understand that real security doesn't come from controlling everything, but from knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way. The path to healing involves small acts of conscious surrender, and this is frightening because it seems too dangerous, but it is precisely in the gradual practice of letting go of control that freedom begins to appear. It can start with simple things, letting someone choose the restaurant without giving your opinion, traveling without a detailed itinerary, only with general directions, delegating a task at work, and resisting the urge to micromanage. Each of these moments will be uncomfortable at first because the whole body is programmed to believe that letting go of control means danger. But little by little, as the person experiences that the world doesn't crumble when they relax a little, something begins to change. Jung spoke about the need to integrate opposites, and for those who live controlling everything, the opposite to be integrated is trust, flexibility, the ability to improvise. Practices like meditation can help immensely, especially those focused on acceptance and non-resistance. Reading texts on philosophies like Taoism, which speak of Wu Wei, the principle of acting without forcing, can open new paths of understanding. Seeking therapy to investigate the root of this fear of the unpredictable can reveal connections the person never imagined. But while this battle for external control is happening, the person often develops an equally intense need to control something internal. Silence as a refuge is a profound need that is often misinterpreted as antisocial behavior or coldness. But it's nothing of the sort. It's the visceral need to pause the outside world, to find a space where there are no expectations, where there's no need to perform, where the soul can simply breathe without being observed or judged. For those who carry these marks of pain, silence is not just the absence of sound, it's a sanctuary. It's that moment when a person closes the bedroom door and can finally remove all the masks, all the armor, all the persona they needed to wear during the day. Carl Jung deeply understood the importance of withdrawal, of introspection, of what he called returning to oneself. He knew that the psyche needs these moments of silence to process, to integrate experiences, to simply exist without external demands. And for someone who has gone through transformative pain, this need is even more intense because the outside world demands so much. It demands that the person be functional, that they respond to messages, that they participate, that they smile, that they explain. And all of this consumes energy in a way that those who have never experienced it cannot fathom. This silence isn't isolation born of contempt for others or a lack of love. In fact, it's often the exact opposite. The person withdraws precisely because they care, because they know that if they don't recharge their energy, they won't have anything genuine to offer. It's like a cell phone that needs to be plugged in before the battery completely dies. The problem is that we live in a culture that romanticizes constant availability, that sees silence as something suspicious, that interprets the need for solitude as rejection. Friends get offended when she cancels plans. Family members question why she isolates herself so much. Romantic partners feel rejected when she asks for space. But those who truly understand recognize that this silence is restorative, necessary, and sacred. Spirituality teaches us that there are times for action and times for reflection, and both are equally important. Monks of various traditions have always known this, which is why they created retreats, periods of silence, and contemplative practices. They understood that the soul needs stillness to find itself again. Honoring this need for silence without guilt is a revolutionary act of self-care. It means learning to communicate this need clearly and lovingly. I need some alone time. It's not about you, it's about me recharging. It means creating rituals of silence that become non-negotiable, like that hour in the morning before speaking to anyone, or that night a week with no social commitments. It can be helpful to create a physical space in the house dedicated to this refuge, a corner with comfortable cushions, soft lighting, perhaps some objects that bring peace. It doesn't need to be elaborate, it just needs to be yours. Practices like journaling in this space can be transformative, allowing thoughts and emotions to flow without judgment. Reading books that honor introspection, such as The Power of Silence by Eckhart Tolle, can validate this need. And setting firm boundaries with people who don't respect this need is fundamental. Jung teaches us that the individuation process requires a person to become sovereign over their own energy, and this includes consciously deciding when to open up to the world and when to close up in order to restore themselves. But even with all this care, when the time comes to open up again to people and connections, something specific happens. An excessively closed heart is like a locked safe with multiple layers of protection. It's not that the person doesn't want to love or be loved, it's that every attempt at closeness goes through a rigorous, almost forensic screening. Every gesture is analyzed, every word is weighed, every intention is questioned. The person looks at whoever approaches and immediately begins to look for signs of danger, red flags, evidence that that person will eventually hurt them. And they almost always find something. Because when you look for reasons not to trust, the brain becomes an expert at finding them. A delay becomes a lack of consideration. A neutral comment becomes a possible disguised criticism. A change in mood becomes a sign that the person is getting tired of them. Carl Jung would say that we are facing a massive projection mechanism, where the person projects their own wounds onto every interaction, coloring the present with the colors of the past. The ego built this fortress as protection, and now it has become so efficient that it keeps out not only those who could hurt, but also those who could heal. It's a paradoxical prison. The safer a person feels behind those walls, the more lonely they become. This extreme difficulty in trusting doesn't arise from nowhere. It's always the result of an old betrayal, a disappointment that scarred so deeply that the psyche decided, never again. Perhaps it was that trusted figure who should have protected but hurt instead, or that lover who swore fidelity and betrayed, or those friends who knew all the secrets and used them as weapons. Whatever the story, the result is the same. The heart has learned that opening up means bleeding, and so it closes layer by layer until it can barely feel anything beyond a safe distance from everyone. The saddest part is that this person usually has so much love to give, so much capacity for deep connection, But all of that remains locked behind fear. It's like having an immense treasure locked in a safe whose combinations have been forgotten. Spirituality teaches us that the human heart is made to expand, to connect, to love and be loved. But when pain transforms this into danger, the very essential nature of the person becomes imprisoned. They continue living, functioning, but always with that feeling of watching life through a window, never truly immersing themselves in it. The path back to vulnerability is slow and needs to be gentle. It's not about forcing the heart to open all at once. It's about creating small cracks in the armor through which the light can begin to enter. This can begin with safe and gradual relationships, perhaps a non-judgmental therapist, a support group where others share similar wounds, a pet that offers unconditional love without complex demands. Every positive experience of vulnerability, however small, teaches the nervous system that opening up doesn't always result in pain. Jung spoke of shadow work as essential for healing, and here that means honestly looking at the fear of trusting, recognizing where it comes from, and asking the courageous question, has this person in front of me already hurt me, or am I just afraid they will? Practices like writing letters that will never be sent to people who have broken trust can release trapped emotions. Working with Jungian archetypes, especially the archetype of the wounded innocent and the wounded healer, can bring profound insights. And understanding that trusting again doesn't mean being naive, but rather consciously choosing to give chances while maintaining healthy boundaries. It's a delicate balance between protection and openness, and finding it takes time. But while this heart is closed to some things, curiously it opens intensely to others. A keen sense of justice is like a flame that never goes out. A person who bears this mark cannot simply ignore injustices, cannot let it go when they see someone being disrespected, silenced, or treated dishonestly. While others can go through life with a certain indifference to the problems of others, this person feels a visceral, almost physical reaction to any situation that smacks of injustice. It can be something small, like someone taking credit for another's work, or something big, like witnessing discrimination or abuse of power. The reaction is always disproportionate to an outside observer, but for the one who feels it, it is impossible not to react. Carl Jung would say that this is deeply connected to the archetypes of the warrior and the avenger that inhabit the collective unconscious. But in the case of someone who has experienced transformative pain, this sense of justice is not just an abstract ideal. It was born from the concrete experience of having been treated unjustly, of having been betrayed, silenced, or disrespected. A person knows firsthand how painful it is to be invisible, how much it hurts to be used, how much it burns to be deceived. And this memory, etched into their soul, makes it impossible for them to passively witness another human being go through the same thing. This intolerance of injustice manifests itself in very specific ways in daily life. At work, this person is the one who doesn't stay quiet when someone is being exploited or when unethical decisions are being made. They are the first to question, to raise their voice, to defend those who cannot defend themselves. In relationships, they do not tolerate lies, emotional games, or manipulation. A small disloyalty to others is a giant betrayal to them. In friendships, they are the one who doesn't accept gossip, who confronts when someone is being unfair, who breaks ties when they perceive dishonesty. And this has a cost. Often they are seen as difficult, intense, exaggerated. People say they should choose their battles, that not everything deserves a reaction. But for someone who carries this sense of justice as a scar, it's not a rational choice. It's an automatic response, almost a moral imperative engraved in the structure of their being. Spirituality teaches us that every wound can be transformed into wisdom, And in this case, the wound of injustice experienced has transformed into a tireless fight for dignity, not only for oneself, but for everyone around. The challenge is learning to channel that flame of justice without getting burned in the process. Because the truth is, the world is full of injustices, and trying to fight them all at once is a direct path to burnout. Jung teaches us about the importance of recognizing our limits, of understanding that we cannot save the world alone. Healing involves consciously choosing where to invest that moral warrior energy. It can be through volunteer work in specific causes that resonate with one's own history, such as supporting victims of situations similar to those you have experienced. It can be through focused activism, choosing one or two causes to dedicate real energy to instead of dispersing it across everything. Organizations such as human rights NGOs, social projects, or even local support groups can be healthy channels for this need to fight for justice. Reading about historical figures who transformed their own pain into collective struggle can be inspiring. People like Viktor Frankl, who survived concentration camps and dedicated his life to teaching about the meaning of suffering. Practicing what Jung called conscious withdrawal is also important. Knowing when to step away so as not to be consumed by righteous anger that can easily turn into bitterness. And understanding that being a warrior for justice doesn't mean always being in battle, but wisely choosing when to fight and when to conserve energy. But this ability to perceive injustices is not limited to the obvious and explicit. The ability to see the invisible in others is like possessing an emotional radar that detects frequencies most people don't even realize exist. It's that disconcerting skill of looking at someone who is smiling and knowing, with absolute certainty, that inside that person is crumbling. It's noticing when someone says, "I'm fine," but their tone of voice, posture, the absent sparkle in their eyes betray that no, they definitely aren't fine. While most accept social masks at face value, those who have developed this sensitivity can see through them as if they were transparent. And this isn't magic, it isn't inexplicable mystical intuition. It's memory. It's the direct result of having lived in the invisible for so long that you've become an expert at recognizing it in others. Carl Jung spoke about how the unconscious communicates through subtle signals that the conscious mind often ignores. But for those who have gone through the transformation of pain, these signals are impossible to ignore. The person developed advanced emotional literacy, learning to read between the lines, to feel what is not being said, to perceive the pain hidden behind forced smiles. This ability stems from an ancient need for emotional survival. When you've spent years feeling like nobody really saw you, when your pain was repeatedly ignored or minimized, you develop a silent promise: I will see others. I won't let anyone feel as invisible as I felt. It's almost like an unconscious mission the soul undertakes. Then this person becomes that friend who sends a message exactly when you need it most, even without you saying anything. That coworker who notices when someone is going through a difficult time, even if they're maintaining normal productivity. That family member who knows when something has changed in you, even if you haven't visibly changed anything in your routine. And people are often surprised, how did you know? And the honest answer would be, because I recognize in you the same signals I emitted when I was at rock bottom and nobody noticed. Spirituality teaches us that pain has the power to make us more compassionate, more attentive, more human. And this ability to see the invisible is one of the most beautiful expressions of this transformation. The challenge is to use this heightened perception in a healthy way without getting lost in it. Because seeing the pain of everyone around you can be overwhelming. It can lead to burnout from excessive empathy, which we've explored before. Jung invites us to establish what he called differentiation, the ability to feel with the other without losing yourself in the process. This means you can perceive that someone is suffering without taking on the responsibility of solving all of that person's suffering. You can offer presence without offering solutions. You can say, "I see you and I'm here if you need me," without having to completely sacrifice yourself. Practices like loving kindness meditation can help cultivate compassion while maintaining healthy boundaries. Imagine visualizing the person in distress surrounded by healing light, while you remain grounded in your own energy. Working with a Jungian therapist can help you understand how to use this sensitivity as a strength without letting it become a burden. And perhaps most importantly, learning to offer yourself the same compassionate attention you offer others. Use this emotional radar to also detect when you yourself need care, when you're starting to lose yourself, when you need to withdraw. Because what good is seeing everyone around you if you become invisible to yourself? But there's another mark that often accompanies all this sensitivity. The fear of being a burden is perhaps one of the most silent and insidious scars that exist. It's that shame that dwells deep in the soul, constantly whispering that you take up too much space, that your needs are inconvenient, that your existence is a weight on others. The person lives apologizing for things that don't even need apologies. Sorry for sending a message. Sorry for needing help. Sorry for being tired, for being sad, for simply existing with all the complexities that come with being human. They try to shrink, to make themselves small, to minimize their needs as if their very presence were a nuisance that needs to be constantly justified. Carl Jung deeply explored unconscious guilt, that feeling that something is fundamentally wrong with yourself when nothing objective justifies that feeling. And for those who have developed this fear of being a burden, guilt has infiltrated so deeply into the ego structure that it has become a lens through which every interaction is filtered. People can't simply ask for something. They need to excessively justify themselves, apologize in advance, offer something in return even before the help is given. It's exhausting to live like that, always feeling the need to compensate for the simple fact of existing. This silent shame about existing with needs usually has very specific roots in a person's history. Perhaps it was a childhood where their needs were treated as inconvenient, where crying was met with irritation instead of comfort, where asking for attention was seen as being needy or too much. Or perhaps it was a family dynamic where the person learned early on that they were only valued when they were giving, helping, solving other people's problems, never when they were receiving. The internalized message was clear. You only have value when you are useful, when you make life easier for others, not when you have your own needs. And this message has become so deeply ingrained that now, years later, the person carries an automatic guilt every time they need something. They look at their own needs as if they were character flaws, as if feeling emotional hunger were a defect that needs to be hidden. Spirituality teaches us that every human being is inherently worthy, that our existence does not need to be justified or compensated. But for those who carry this mark, this truth seems distant, almost impossible to internalize. The entire body has been programmed to believe that occupying space is a transgression that needs to be constantly forgiven. Healing this pattern requires a gentle and consistent reprogramming of how a person relates to themselves. Jung spoke about the need to integrate what he called the inner child, that part of us that carries old wounds and needs to be compassionately reparented. This means starting to practice asking for things without apologizing. It sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. Instead of saying, "Sorry to bother you, but could you?" practice saying only, "Could you?" Every time the urge to apologize arises, pause and ask, "Did I really do something wrong? Or is it just the old programming talking?" Working with affirmations may seem cliché, but it works when done consistently. Repeating phrases like, "I deserve to occupy space," or "My needs are valid," daily begins to create new neural pathways. Therapy focused on self-esteem and repairing attachments can be transformative, especially approaches that work with the body, such as somatic therapy, which helps release guilt that has become trapped at the physical level. Reading books like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle can help you understand that you are not your guilt-ridden thoughts. You are the consciousness that observes those thoughts. And perhaps the most important step, begin to realize that the people who truly love you don't see you as a burden. And if someone makes you feel that way, perhaps it's time to question whether that relationship is healthy. But while that person struggles with the feeling of being too much, paradoxically, they have also developed a special ability to appreciate what others consider too small. Appreciation for the little things is one of the most beautiful transformations that pain can bring. While many people pursue grand achievements and spectacular moments, those who have gone through the transformation of pain have learned to find emotional depth in what is simple. A hot coffee in the morning is not just a drink, it's a ritual of presence, a moment of silent gratitude for being alive, for being able to feel the warmth between your hands, for having another day. The afternoon light coming through the window is not just a physical phenomenon, it's poetry, it's beauty that touches something deep in the soul. A message of care from a loved one is not just text on a screen, it's confirmation that you matter, that you exist in someone's heart, that you are not as alone as you sometimes feel. Carl Jung spoke about how individuation leads us to a more conscious and present relationship with reality. And for those who have passed through the valley of the shadow, this presence has become heightened in a way that those who have never suffered deeply can hardly understand. Because when you've been at rock bottom, when you've felt like everything was lost, when you've experienced meaninglessness, you develop a special ability to savor life when it starts to make sense again. This silent gratitude for the simple things is not just a positive personality trait or a conscious choice to think positive. It's a direct consequence of having experienced emotional scarcity, of having lived through periods where even these small things seemed impossible or distant. Someone who has experienced deep depression knows the value of being able to feel pleasure again, even if it's just the taste of a fresh fruit. Someone who has experienced emotional isolation knows the weight of a shared laugh, even if brief. Someone who has been trapped in paralyzing anxiety knows the gift of a moment of peace, even if it lasts only a few minutes. Spirituality teaches us that enlightenment is not found in extraordinary experiences, but in being fully present in the ordinary. And these people have already discovered this, not through formal spiritual practices, but through their own suffering, which has taught them to no longer take anything for granted. They know, at the deepest level of their being, that everything can change in an instant, that life is fragile and precious, and this awareness of impermanence doesn't make them bitter. It makes them present, deeply, intensely present. What makes this even more special is that this appreciation is neither naivete nor denial of pain. It's not that toxic positivism that ignores real suffering. It's exactly the opposite. It's the ability to hold both truths simultaneously. Life can be brutal and life can be beautiful, and often it is both at the same time. Jung called this coincidentia oppositorum, the union of opposites. The person who carries this mark may be going through difficulties and still stop to feel the wind on their face and think how good it is to be alive to feel this. They may have a heavy heart and still smile genuinely when they see a child playing or a dog running happily. This is not contradiction, it is emotional maturity. It is understanding that pain and beauty coexist, and that having experienced the former makes us capable of perceiving the latter with much greater intensity. Consciously cultivating this appreciation can be a daily practice, keeping a gratitude journal where you write down 3 simple things that touched you that day. It could be the smell of fresh bread. It could be a sincere conversation. It could simply be having managed to get a good rest. Mindfulness practices, such as mindfulness meditation, help train the mind to notice these moments instead of going through them on autopilot. Reading poets who celebrate the ordinary, like Mary Oliver or Manuel de Barros, can nurture this sensitivity, and simply slowing down, creating pauses in the day where you are not producing anything, just existing and perceiving. But all this transformation, all these marks, eventually converge into something greater. The need for purpose after pain is perhaps the most profound transformation that can happen to a soul. Because there is a moment, usually after the worst is over, when a person looks back and asks themselves, why did I go through all this? There has to be a reason. It has to mean something. This search is not optional. It's not a philosophical luxury. It's a visceral need to find meaning in suffering. Because the alternative would be to accept that it was all just gratuitous, empty pain without purpose. And human beings cannot live with that idea for very long without collapsing. Carl Jung dedicated a large part of his life to studying exactly this, how we transform our wounds into wisdom, how suffering can become the fuel for individuation, which is the process of truly becoming who you are. And he discovered that people who manage to find meaning in their pain not only survive better, they transcend. They stop being passive victims of what happened to them and become active authors of a new narrative. Pain ceases to be merely a meaningless trauma and transforms into a direction, a calling, a personal mission that gives meaning not only to past suffering, but also to future purpose. This transformation of pain into purpose manifests itself in very concrete ways. A person who has suffered abuse can become an advocate for other victims, creating safe spaces they themselves would have liked to have had. Someone who has experienced deep depression can dedicate their life to teaching others about mental health, breaking the silence that almost destroyed them. Someone who has lived through extreme loneliness can create communities where people genuinely connect, offering the support network they needed and didn't have. It's as if the wound transforms into a portal, a point of passage between who you were and who you can become. Spirituality teaches us that our greatest gifts often arise from our greatest pains. Deep empathy is born from having suffered. Wisdom is born from having erred. Compassion is born from having needed it and not having received it. And this alchemy of transforming lead into gold, of taking what is darkest in you and making it shine, is the heart of what Jung called the individuation process. It's not about erasing what happened. It's about integrating it, about making that experience part of a larger narrative where you are not only what you suffered, but also what you created from that suffering. The path to finding this purpose is neither linear nor obvious. There is no magic formula that instantly transforms pain into meaning. It's a gradual process that first requires healing enough to be able to look back without being consumed by trauma. It requires therapeutic work, perhaps years of therapy, to process what happened and begin to see with new eyes. Shadow work is fundamental here, that deep work of looking at everything you've rejected in yourself, all the anger, hurt, shame, and integrating them in a way that they become strength, not poison. Practices like writing your story help immensely. Sitting down and writing everything that happened, but this time as a compassionate observer, looking for moments of resilience, turning points, small victories you didn't even notice at the time. Some people find purpose in helping others directly through volunteer work, mentoring, or care professions like psychology, nursing, and social work. Others find it through art, writing books, painting, making music, transforming pain into beauty that touches others. Some dedicate themselves to social causes, fighting to change systems that create the kind of suffering they experienced. What matters is not the specific form the purpose takes, but the internal movement of decision. I will not let this pain have been in vain. I will transform it into something that matters. And with this decision, something fundamental changes. The person ceases to be a prisoner of their own history and becomes the author of a new chapter. All these characteristics we've explored so far aren't character flaws. They aren't weaknesses that need to be hidden or shamed. They are creative and desperate attempts at protection that your psyche developed to ensure your survival. Hyper-independence protected you from being abandoned again. Excessive empathy helped you anticipate emotional dangers. Fear of relationships prevented you from getting hurt again. The persona of strength allowed you to function in the world even when you were crumbling inside. Each of these traits was, at some point, essential to your survival. Carl Jung teaches us that the psyche is fundamentally intelligent, that it is always working in our favor, even when its methods seem counterproductive. The problem isn't that these mechanisms existed. The problem is when they become permanent, when what was temporary protection becomes a permanent prison, when the war is over but the soldier remains in the trenches, always alert, always defending, always waiting for the next attack. The liberating truth is this: you no longer need these armors in the same way you did before. The danger has passed, even if your body hasn't yet received the news. Pain has shaped who you are today. That's undeniable. It has sculpted your personality, defined your boundaries, and created your patterns of response to the world. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Pain may have shaped you, but it no longer needs to guide you. You no longer need to let past decisions dictate present decisions. You no longer need to react today based on what happened yesterday. Deep spirituality invites us to this moment of conscious choice, where we recognize that we were shaped by the past, but are not condemned to repeat it. Jung called this individuation the moment you stop living on autopilot and consciously begin to choose who you want to be. This doesn't mean forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It means integrating that experience as part of you without letting it be all of you. It means looking at that wounded child within you with compassion, thanking them for fighting so hard to keep you alive, and then gently saying, "I know you're scared, but I'll take care of us now. You can rest." And in that moment, something profound begins to transform. The armor begins to soften, old patterns begin to be questioned, and for the first time, you begin to live not from fear, but from conscious choice. Recognizing your own strength in having survived is one of the most powerful acts of healing that exists, because look at you. You went through all that, and you're still here. You carried weights that would have crushed many people, and you kept walking. You felt pain that seemed deadly, and you chose to stay alive. That's not weakness, that's strength in its purest and truest form. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You developed sensitivities that others don't have. You learned lessons that can't be taught in books. You gained a depth of soul that only suffering can bring. And now, with all this wisdom gained at such a high price, you have a choice. You can continue living imprisoned by old defense mechanisms, or you can begin to gently dismantle them piece by piece, consciously choosing new patterns. This doesn't happen overnight. Healing is slow, non-linear, full of advances and setbacks. But every small step counts. Every moment of self-awareness is a victory. Every time you choose to respond differently, even if it's difficult, you are rewriting your story. Jung reminds us that the goal is not perfection, it's integration. It's recognizing all parts of yourself, the light and the dark, the strong and the wounded, and embracing them all with gentleness. Because you deserve that compassion. You always have. So now you know the 13 marks. You saw your own story reflected in each of these characteristics, didn't you? And now comes the most important question of all. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Because it's one thing to intellectually understand what happened to you, and quite another to decide to act, to consciously choose to begin the healing process. Let me ask you some direct questions, and I want you to answer with brutal honesty. How many more years will you carry armor you no longer need? How much longer will you let the pain of the past dictate your present decisions? How long will you postpone looking at these wounds with the compassion they deserve? The truth is, you can continue exactly as you are, functioning on autopilot, surviving but not truly living. Or you can do things differently. You can start today, right now, to gently dismantle these old patterns. Jung taught us that individuation, the process of truly becoming who you are, requires courage. It requires looking at the shadow. It requires recognizing that you are not your wounds, you are much more than that. And the knowledge you've just absorbed here can't just stay theoretical. It needs to become practice. It needs to become conscious action every day, choosing to respond differently, choosing to treat yourself with the kindness you've always deserved to receive. Look, I know it's scary. I know it seems easier to continue as you are, because at least you already know this pain. You already know how to navigate it. The unknown of healing seems more threatening than the known suffering. But what if I told you that on the other side of this journey, there's a version of you that no longer lives imprisoned by fear, a version that can trust without terror, that can open up without destroying itself, that can simply exist without apologizing for taking up space? That version exists. It's waiting for you, but you need to take the first step. It could be seeking specialized therapeutic help. It could be starting that journal you've been putting off for months. It could simply be stopping the next time the old pattern emerges and asking, is this really about now, or is it about before? Small steps, every day, without rushing but without pausing. And remember that phrase that started all this? My pain also taught me. Yes, it did. It made you more empathetic, deeper, more aware. But now it's time to transform that teaching into liberation. You've already proven your strength by surviving. Now prove your courage by choosing to truly live. If this content touched you deeply, if these words resonated with your soul in a way that few things do, I need to ask you one thing. Subscribe to this channel now and activate the notification bell, because what you just learned here is only the beginning. There is much more profound knowledge about spirituality, about Jungian psychology, about the archetypes that inhabit your unconscious, about shadow work and the path of individuation. And I will continue to bring this content that few have the courage to explore with the necessary depth. This is a space for those who no longer want to live on the surface, for those who are ready to dive deep into their own soul and do the work that truly transforms. So subscribe, activate notifications, and let's continue this journey together, because you no longer need to walk alone. Your pain has taught you, but now it's time to use that teaching to create a life worth living. And I will be here bringing the tools, the knowledge, and the inspiration you need to keep moving forward. See you in the next video, and remember, you are much stronger than you imagine. Your soul has already been transformed by pain. Now it's time for it to be transformed by healing.